Veldt by Ray Bradbury. George, I wish you'd look at the nursery. What's wrong with it? I don't know. Well then, I just want you to look at it all. We'll call a psychologist in to look at it. What would a psychologist want with a nursery? You know very well what he'd want. His wife paused in the middle of the kitchen and watched the stove busy humming to itself, making supper for 4. It's just that the nursery's different now than it was. All right, let's have a look. They walked down the hall of their soundproof Happy Life home, which had cost them $30,000 installed. This house, which clothed and fed and rocked them to sleep, and played and sang, and was good to them. Their approach sensitized a switch somewhere, and the nursery light flicked on when they came within 10 feet of it. Similarly, behind them, in the halls, lights went on and off as they left them behind with a soft automacy. The couple's Happy Life home runs on advanced technology, is cold and unwelcoming, is boring and unimpressive, needs to be upgraded. Well, said George Hadley. They stood on the thatched floor of the nursery. It was 40 feet across by 40 feet long and 30 feet high. It had cost half, again, as much as the rest of the house. But nothing's too good for all children, George had said. The nursery was silent. It was empty as a jungle glade at hot and high noon. The walls were blank and two-dimensional. Now, George and Lydia Hadley stood in the center of the room. The walls began to purr and recede into crystalline distance, it seemed, and presently an African Veldt appeared. In 3 dimension on all sides, in color reproduced to the final pebble and bit of straw. The ceiling above them became a deep sky with a hot yellow sun. George Hadley felt the perspiration start on his brow. Let's get out of this sun, he said. This is a little too real, but I don't think anything's wrong. Wait a moment, and you'll see, said his wife. Now the hidden ordophonics were beginning to blow a wind of odor at the 2 people in the middle of the baked Veldt land. The hot straw smell of lion grass, the cool green smell of hidden waterhole, the great rusty smell of animals, the smell of dust like a red paprika in the hot air, and now the sounds, the thump of distant antelope feet on grassy sod, the papery rustle of vultures. A shadow passed through the sky. The shadow flicked on George Hadley's upturned, sweating face. Filthy creatures, he heard his wife say. The vultures. You see, there are lions far over, that way. Now they're on their way to the watering hole. They've just been eating, said Lydia. I don't know what. Some animal. George Hadley put his hand up to shield off the burning light from his squinted eyes. A zebra or baby giraffe, maybe. Are you sure? His wife sounded peculiarly tense. No, it's a little late to be sure, he said, amused. Nothing over there I can see but clean bone and vultures dropping for what's left. Did you hear that scream? She asked. No. What about a minute ago? Sorry, no. What do the parents do and why? Investigate the nursery because Mr. Hadley believes the room is broken. Reprogram the nursery because it's not showing the images it should. Go to the nursery because Mrs. Hadley thinks something is wrong with it. Go to the nursery to enjoy the warm sun of the Veldt. The lions were coming, and again George Hadley was filled with admiration for the mechanical genius who had conceived this room, a miracle of efficiency, selling for an absurdly low price. Every home should have one. Oh, occasionally they would frighten you with their clinical accuracy. They startled you, gave you a twinge. But most of the time, what fun for everyone. Not only your own son and daughter, but for yourself when you felt like a quick jaunt to a foreign land or a quick change of scenery. Well, here it was. And here were the lions now, 15 feet away, so real, so fiercely and startlingly real that you could feel the prickling fur on your hand. Your mouth was stuffed with the dusty upholstery smell of their heated pelts, and the yellow of them was in your eyes like the yellow of an exquisite French tapestry. The yellows of lions and summer grass, and the sound of the matted lion lungs exhaling on the silent noontide. The smell of meat from the panting, dripping mouths. The lions stood looking at George and Lydia Hadley with terrible green eyes. "Watch out!" screamed Lydia. The lions came running at them. Lydia bolted and ran. Instinctively, George sprang after her. Outside in the hall, with the door slammed, he was laughing and she was crying, and they both stopped appalled at each other's reaction. "George? Lydia? Oh, my poor sweet Lydia. They almost got us." "Walls, Lydia. Remember, crystal walls, that's all they are. Oh, they look real, I must admit. African in your parlor. But it's all dimensional. Super reactionary, super sensitive color, film in metal tape, film behind glass scenes. It's all orthophonics and sonics, Lydia. Here's my handkerchief." "I'm afraid." She came to him and put her body against him and cried it steadily. "Did you see? Did you feel? It's too real." "Now, Lydia, you've got to tell Wendy and Peter not to read any more on Africa." Which of the following describes how the nursery is supposed to work? It projects the experience that you want it to have. It materializes whatever you're thinking about. It exposes your darkest secrets. It shows you what you're most afraid of. Of course, he patted her. "Promise?" "Sure. And lock the nursery for a few days until I get my nerves settled." "You know how difficult Peter is about that. When I punished him a month ago by locking the nursery for even a few hours, the tantrum he threw. And Wendy, too. They live for the nursery. It's got to be locked. That's all there is to it." "All right." Reluctantly, he locked the huge door. "It's been working too hard. You need some rest. You've been working too hard. You need some rest." I don't know, she said, blowing her nose, sitting down in a chair that immediately began to rock and comfort her. "Maybe I don't have enough to do. Maybe have too much time to think. Why don't we just shut the whole house off for a few days and take a vacation?" "You mean you want to fry my eggs for me?" "Yes," she nodded. "And mend my socks?" "Yes," a frantic, water-eyed nodding. "And sweep the house?" "Yes, oh yes." "But I thought that's why we bought this house, so we wouldn't have to do anything." "That's just it. I feel like I don't belong here. The house is wife and mother now, and well, it's still just a nursemaid. Can I compete with an African Veldt? Can I give a bath and scrub the children as efficiently or quickly as the automatic scrub bath? I cannot. And it isn't just me, it's you. You've been awfully nervous lately." "I suppose I've been smoking too much. You look as if you don't know what to do with yourself in the house either. You smoke a little more every morning and drink a little more every afternoon and need a little more sedative every night. You're beginning to feel uneasy, too." "Am I?" He paused and tried to feel into himself to see what was really there. How do Mr. and Mrs. Hadley feel about the house and why? They are discontent because they no longer feel needed or valued to their family. They are fearful because the lions are no longer contained to the nursery. They are jealous because the children prefer spending time with the house over them. They are concerned because they no longer have control of the technology in their home. "Oh, George," she looked beyond him at the nursery door. "Those lions can't get out of there, can they?" He looked at the door and saw it trembling as if something had jumped against it from the other side. "Of course not," he said. At dinner, they ate alone, for Wendy and Peter were at a special plastic carnival across town and had televised home to say they'd be late. To go ahead eating. So George Hadley, bemused, sat watching the dining room table produced warm dishes of food from its mechanical interior. "We forgot the ketchup," he said. "Sorry," said a small voice within the table, and ketchup appeared. As for the nursery, thought George Hadley, it won't hurt for the children to be locked out of it for a while. Too much of anything isn't good for anyone. And it was clearly indicated that the children had been spending a little too much time on Africa. That sun, he could feel it on his neck still like a hot paw. And the lions, and the smell of blood. Remarkable how the nursery caught the telepathic emanations of the children's minds and created life to fill their every desire. The children thought lions, and there were lions. The children thought zebras, and there were zebras. Sun, sun. Giraffes, giraffes. Death, and death. That last, he chewed tastelessly on the meat that the table had cut for him. Death thoughts. They were awfully young. Wendy and Peter for death thoughts. Or, no, you were never too young, really. Long before you knew what death was, you were wishing it on someone else. When you were 2 years old, you were shooting people with cap pistols. But this, the long, hot African veldt, the awful death in the jaws of the lion, and repeated again and again. What does Mr. Hadley reflect on after they left the nursery? He worries his children started thinking about death at an early age. He is proud that his children are mature enough to think about death. He fears that his children are often afraid of the idea of death. He worries that his children have an unhealthy obsession with death.